Now, seriously, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to be able to follow William's speech, but I'll certainly try my best to do what I can. So please just humour me, okay? Now, let me make one thing perfectly clear. I'm a little bit nervous, so again, be gentle. Now, I'm not any woman hater or misogynist, and as Natty said, I was accidentally dragged into gender politics, completely accidentally and completely against my will. You know, I'm actually very fond of women. I have no problem with women. I actually married one. And I've got 2 grown-up daughters as well. And my wife and I, we don't actually follow typical gender stereotypes. She does the DIY and the ironing. She does the DIY and the driving, and I do the ironing. Now, you may or may not all be aware of exactly what happened, so I'm going to give you some brief background on what happened with myself. So, as you've already been told, a Travelodge receptionist just actually called the police claiming I was a paedophile when I checked into the hotel with my daughter. Now, my daughter looks a little bit like me, well, a little bit anyway, sorry about that. And now, the receptionist didn't actually do any due diligence. She didn't ask for any ID. You know, I had my passport on me and I had my daughter's passport on me. I had them both on me, ready to check, because obviously, you know, as a father in this day and age, you've got to watch yourself, you've got to be careful. She didn't do any of that. All she did was book me in, give me dirty looks, and then half an hour after we booked in, there was a rap at the door and there was a policewoman standing there looking all stern. Now, I'm not going to say exactly the words she used because I can't remember them, but it was along the lines of, Travelodge have caused us because we think you're a paedophile grooming a young girl. Again, didn't ask for any ID, didn't ask for any information, anything like that. Now, this story, I went public with it. Now, I didn't do that for any vanity motion. I didn't do that for any notion of fame. You know, I wasn't looking for my 15 minutes, as Andy Warhol would say. I did it as a self-protection exercise. Because I don't know if you're aware, on the police national computer, if you're ever accused of a crime, not convicted, not really investigated, but ever accused, a record stays on the police national computer. I didn't know that until afterwards. Now, it was hard enough having a policewoman come in and question me about the relationship with my daughter, let alone what happened after that when she left, when my daughter just basically broke down. You know, we went up to the Travelodge to the north of England to see my mum, who was about to start treatment for lung cancer. Luckily, thank God, she's actually in remission now, so that's not so much of a problem anymore. Cheers. Again, I'm sure she'll be very happy about that. She's famous at last. Okay. Now, as I say, I went to the papers with the story to protect myself. And a lot of people on the back of the newspaper story wanted to interview me, wanted to know more. I actually had the agent who I worked with to get the story out there. She actually wanted me to go on This Morning and Loose Women. The answer to the latter was rather expletive-laden, so I won't go into what that was. But no, so I wasn't into it. I wasn't into making myself famous. I wasn't into trying to be somebody. It was just purely a self-protection exercise because I knew that my name would now forever be, I don't know how long these things last, would now be notioned with the word paedophile. And I couldn't have that. Now, the story actually blew up. It actually blew up all over the world. If you actually just Google my name, you will actually see the story in all sorts of different languages and all sorts of different countries. From China, no, I didn't manage to translate it, and it also went from Australia to the US, Eastern Europe, all over the world the story's been featured. Now, a lot of people have come up with the attitude that, well, the receptionist did the right thing. They're just trying to protect children. I can kind of agree with that to a point. I can sort of empathise with that point because, you know, we all want to protect children. You know, very few people don't in this world, and if you don't, then, you know, I won't say what I was going to say. But basically, while I agree with the point, I still think they overreacted. I still think they wouldn't have overreacted in the same way if I had my son with me. I haven't got one, he's fictitious, but there we go. Or they wouldn't have reacted in the same way if my wife would have taken my daughter to the Travelodge. Now, again, going back to William's point about gender disparity, that's a very clear aspect right there. Again, they didn't ask for any evidence, they didn't ask for any proof of who we were, they just called the police straight away. Now, imagine this. Knowing, and I've actually done a DBS check, that's, used to be called a criminal records check. I've actually done a DBS check for a job that I actually applied for and was given, but I actually chose not to actually take it a few months ago. Now, I actually did the DBS check because it was handling large amounts of money, and they needed that. Now, I did the check, and guess what? The allegations was on there. It was still on there. And this was over a year later. So, I have not got any legal training, so I don't know how long these things last. Maybe there's a statute of limitations somewhere, but I don't know. So you can imagine, this is the only way I had to protect myself, was to go to the papers. Now, Travelodge, in their infinite wisdom, to be fair, while I understand that they tried to do the right thing, they were completely heavy-handed. Now, since it actually happened, we've had backs and forths and we've had discussions that lasted for about 3 months. And they actually eventually refunded me the value of the stay and apologised for the inconvenience. Thanks, lads. No, but at the end of the day, I didn't have the stomach for a big fight. I didn't have the stomach to deal with this problem because, as I say, my mum had got lung cancer. My wife, bless her, she's actually got multiple sclerosis as well. She's got relapsing and relapsing multiple sclerosis, and I'm actually a carer. So I've got a lot going on there. My daughter had some issues with schooling at the time, so as you can imagine, I really didn't have the mental capacity to deal with the issue, so I just sort of left it. But I did try a little experiment. Travelodge, like a lot of companies today, actually have an employee-only Facebook group. I joined it, even though I've never been employed. Guess what? They accepted me. Now, they actually accepted me, and this was within 2 weeks of my face, my daughter's face, and my name being plastered over worldwide media in connection with their hotel business. Now, some social media staffer was just going through, clicking names, blah, 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 and accepting it and thinking it was fine. Now, that shows that their social media staff are thoroughly incompetent and didn't do any due diligence or backup checking or anything like that. Now, I actually work for another large organisation at the moment, and to even join any sort of extracurricular groups, you actually have to put your employee number in, which obviously I didn't have for Travelodge. And I thought, now I'm a member of this group, let's have a look to see if they've said anything about the issue. Now, they did. And I'm a little bit offended, because originally I went to the Daily Star with the story, because that had the biggest readership at the time. But I've been in, highbrow papers like The Independent, The Financial Times, and free papers like Metro and stuff like that, and that's fine. But the story that was quoted on the Travelodge website, the source was bloody Lad Bible. I mean, yeah, that bastion of journalistic integrity, Lad Bible. Was there a lack of cat videos that day? I don't know. But basically, someone posted it, and then there was like 100 and something comments from Travelodge staff afterwards. Some of them, were sort of saying the same thing I've said. Yeah, a little bit heavy-handed, understand the point, just trying to do the right thing. Yeah, I get that. However, a lot of them were a little bit different. One of which said, I should be grateful for what they did. Again, as I say, kind of understand that point of view. One of them, and remember this is a Travelodge staff member, said, I was actually trying to cover my tracks because I might actually be a paedophile and I'm just trying to throw the heat off myself. Another one said I just wanted my 5 minutes of fame. Well, if they knew anything about pop culture, they'd know Andy Warhol said 15, not 5 minutes, but there we go. Now, the thing that really knocked me was one bloke said, oh, he just went to the papers because he wanted money, because these medical bills for his wife and his mum must be stacking up. Now, that shows a complete lack of empathy and a lack of basic intellect, because it shows that they don't understand what the NHS actually does, and we don't have to pay for private medical care in this country. So that's the sort of person that we're working with here. I did have these people's first names written down, but I think for the sake of, you know, trying to be better and trying to be as honest as possible and not be a problem, I just decided not to mention the names. I was actually going to ask if I could put the things up on the screen if we had one, but I decided against that as well. In from there, as I say, I was having this back and forth with Travelodge where they offered to refund the stay, thanks lads, and in from there, I mentioned that a lot of these comments, despite being an employee-only group, are actually published legally. Now, being published legally means that they're actually, some of them could be seen as being libelous or slanderous. Depends on if it was spoken or written, but in this case it would be libelous. So I highlighted that to their, what did he call himself? Customer care manager. And he just basically poo-pooed me and said, sorry mate, you know, shut up and go away, in slightly more professional language. In from there, I then wrote back and said, well, I think, you know, you need to address this. I'm not looking for compensation. I'm not looking for anything here, but I think you need to thoroughly redress your training program and prevent this happening again, because I'm not the first person this has happened to. If you remember, this happened to somebody else before me in a similar situation. I think it was in Chertsey, so if you ever get bored and want to Google something, Google that. It's quite an upsetting story as well. So I'm having this back and forth with them, and they are showing absolutely no empathy for me whatsoever. You know, and let's face facts here. I didn't want to go public with this. I didn't want to go back to them with this because, as I say, I had more important things to worry about. I had illness in my family, my wife, my mum. I had a lot of personal problems with my daughter. I didn't want any of this, but they were just, it felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall, and they were just being so unhelpful. I actually had people message me on Facebook as well, offering me legal advice, saying, oh, you should sue them, you should sue them, you should sue them. I'm like, no, this is not what I'm about. I mean, yeah, would have made a few quid, I suppose, but it's not what I'm about. I was just dragged into this. I wasn't trying to make anything out of this. This wasn't my fault. So in from there, I was going to go further into detail about a lot of other issues that had occurred. However, I'm very aware that we're actually a little bit over time anyway. So I will just finish there. And again, please, thank you very, very much for your help. Thank you to Elizabeth and Justice Men and Boys for giving me the opportunity to be here today. And thank you, everyone.